Happy New Year, everyone. The first stream of the new year. This is Anon. None of this is financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. All right. I got a lot to catch up on. Didn't stream during the week between Christmas and New Year's, so we're going to catch up and let me see what we got here. All right, let's find out what everybody's doing. And let me put out that we're streaming live now. How's it going? Someone's in here with us. Let's see. Content. All right, here we go. What's up? What's up, Braid Pistola? How are you, bud? Can you hear me? I think I got my stuff all set up again. There we go. Cheers. Happy New Year. How was everybody? Good to go. All right. Get a couple more people in before we start the spy stuff. Make sure it kicked out to the Discord. All right. It's supposed to do it automatically, but I know sometimes it's hit or miss. All right, there we go. We are up and running. So, we're still chilling on this down channel. We've been respecting this nice, resistance line. We had that one day we gapped up over it, back tested it, and it just broke through the, we had a tight little, run up going, and it broke through and killed that. So now we're sitting down here, and this has been a consolidation area for a while. And you can kind of see back here, you bounced off it once, went back up, gapped down a couple times, filled those gaps when it ran up, same thing back down, trying to make a lower low. And now we're here again. So this has been this 380s, that's been an area of kind of like, I would say it's like a pivot point where this thing's basically touched, ran back up, came back down, made a lower low, came back up, touched the resistance, came back down. Kind of, this has been where things are likely, starting to chill. But as we're get closer to here, we may see us run back up to fill this gap up here in the 395 area. But that would be probably in like February, or they could do it sooner than then. But I would think at some point they're going to have it come back up and test this resistance line again. But there are some gaps to the downside. And here are some of the gaps right here. I have them in green for all these gaps. So you can see there's one gap along this resistance line up here at the 390s. But there's a couple of them down here that are pretty scary looking when you start zooming out and going, oh wait, there's a ton of gaps down here that need to be filled. Now, doesn't mean that all of them will, but if you were to think about it logically, this is a pretty steep, we could extend this out more, but for the most part, I would think maybe the lowest low I could think of is probably this 220 area right here. I don't know if it will go that far. My guess would be it's probably more likely to end up bouncing off one of these areas. But, this is going into 2024, you know, we'll see. I would expect even the bigger drop if we're going to just do it, like bounce off here, go like really far down, like, you know, World War III is breaking out in the news according to, you know, the media, and then at that point finding some support somewhere down here. So, you know, that's kind of what I'm seeing for right now. You know, is it possible we go back up? Sure, but I think we need to get some of these gaps out of the way, and you know, this will probably remain. I don't think we're filling this gap anytime soon, this 420 gap. You know, could we run up and touch this and then head back down? I'm expecting this thing to go below 350 in the next couple months during 2023. And at that point, finding support somewhere, you know, but it may be ugly, which is why my theory on Ethereum was going to be bearish for a while, because these are all gaps to the upside. And I moved something I probably shouldn't have moved. Oops, I don't know if I can. You know, you can't just go back, can you? Sort of an undo button there. These are all gaps to the upside on Ethereum. I know a bunch of people were asking me questions on that, so there are a ton of them. I think it's more likely to see us fill one of these gaps during a run-up on warrants. I don't know if we're going to be filling these gaps anytime soon. Most likely not. Even the 4-1, that might be the high point. But it's more likely to see a bounce off the bottom, some consolidation, and then some, you know, running up of, you know, the stock into these areas right here since dilution. So what do you guys want to talk about? What's new? Everyone good? Anyone there? I know we don't have a ton of people, but hello. All right. Quiet crowd. So do you guys have any tickers you want to cover, or? No, not really. Silence. Then that's a really short stream. If you want, I'll just go back. I was actually doing some DD on some tickers, so maybe I'll just do that live, and then we can kind of figure it out. What's up, J Pong? How are you, bud? I wanted to look into Beyond, because that was one ticker that I've been kind of just looking at. So short interest, I think, went down slightly. You ready for COSM? Okay. We'll look into it. All right, let's take a look. Did we get any updated numbers? Why is there short interest so low? Cosmos Health. Do they still have the wrong shares? Yeah, they only still have listed 10 million shares outstanding. Score today on LHDX and Duo. Nice. Shannon George says BBY earnings on the 10th. Yep, they are. All right, so yeah, I was going to say, what's going on with this one? Short interest down 96.9% in December. Okay, let's take a look at the shorts. Utilization, let's take a look in the last 7 days. It's gone up a little bit over the last 2 weeks. Up for the last month. It's somewhat down from 100%. Exchange reported free float 200%, but we've established that's because Ortex's numbers are wrong. They're scoring it as 0. Let's take a look. Yeah, but didn't they close most of their short positions here? Bullish divergence on Cosmo. I mean, they've raised a bunch of cash already. They priced in this this offering here. For 12 cents. 62 million shares at 12 cents. $3 warrants. They have a notes convertible. And they still have 2 million that they can raise on the ATM. I mean, most of the movement looks like it's already happened. They don't really need the cash. What's the stock price right now? $5 a share. Let's look at their filings real quick. Let's see. It's a lot less cash. Accounts receivable grew, though. That's good. It's like offset. A lot less market securities. Inventory's about the same. Loans. So I guess I gave out some money for loans. Prepaid assets. So total current assets is about the same. They're claiming through goodwill and some equipment and these loans that their account grew. Let's see how they did on liabilities. So total assets is listed at 49 million, but that's with some fluff, and their total liabilities is 45 million now. What's up, Facewood? How are you, bud? I mean, So they have right now, was this the last thing they had? Sure, let me see if I can do this. Shares outstanding, 16 million. Let's see. They've authorized to issue 300 million shares of common stock. The company had 17 and 13 million for the common stock issued respectively. Is that Class A and Class B? That's what we need to find out. So if I type in Class A, no, Class B, no. So 17.5 million. What does Ortex have? Ortex had 5 or 10 million. That's it showing. So they're 7 million short. So I don't think that's right. But they did have an insider buy, which is good. The chairman of the board bought 1.5 million shares. Is that right? Yeah. So $3 million worth. Interesting. So he bought them there. And the stock has ran all the way to 20. So he bought those. Bought 12 million shares there. And then December 19th was. How come they didn't show the December 19th one? There should be a marker there as well. He's a chairman of the board / CEO. So he's been buying. He sold some there probably for tax purposes, but that was like last year. He sold a bunch over here, and it looks like he bought back even more here. I mean, it's not the worst thing. So, and these was a Greek last name. Is this a Greek-owned company? Has anyone done a bunch of digging on these guys? Is it Cosmos Health? It's a pharmaceutical engaged in providing nutraceuticals and distributors of pharmaceuticals, aided generics over the counter stuff. Headquartered in Chicago. That's biomedical. We need just regular. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you've got him buying back a bunch of shares that he sold back here. So he sold out there and then bought a ton back here, which probably caused this thing because they were not expecting that amount of. Took him a while for it to happen. He did that on October 20th, and it looks like the stock ran quickly after. These are probably like they were scrambling to figure out when they were going to do. They probably went long on it and then let it go up. But my guess would be they covered their short positions here and then shorted it back down. Let's see. Why did it get so beat down? Does anyone know? Yeah, 2,000% short interest at one point, but I was going to say it's not like that anymore. It sounded like most shorts actually covered, which is why you had the spike. But right now, I mean, if you go to shorts, like, let's see what their live says. The stock's liquid, so like, I'm just looking. They think the short interest is 6 million shares. I don't think that's right. What's the official report say? The official report is 5.6 on the last one, but we should get a new one pretty soon. Right? I mean, you had a huge spike already. You have to think that they closed a good amount of shorts there, but this is indicating, where did that happen? December 16th. The settlement date on this was the 15th. What's up, Vladimir? How are you, bud? Yeah, so you've got this run going right there on the 16th, which was the day after they reported. And it spiked all the way up to $20 a share, right? Hit a high of $23.84. I mean, it sounds like they covered there. And the stock's tanked since then. So did they dilute? Well, it was in the 20s and 19s, and I mean, and raise some cash? I don't know. Yeah, everything's good. I was going to say, we're just covering over Cosmos. An international pharmaceutical. Wait a second. Did they do a reverse split? Not a reverse split. Like a split? What's going on here? Why are they saying as of November there are 84 million shares? That's hugely different from what Ortex is saying. Ortex is saying there's 10 million shares. Charts look good to me. Okay, they did a so they did a reverse split down here, I'm guessing. CEO bought back here, right? That's what we decided. So the CEO/chairman bought shares down here at this price. Quickly they had, and then they did a reverse split. They had a run up, and then the secondary. So if you took, what was the you said, was it 25-1? Because they used to have 84 million, right? We were trying to figure this out the other day. And so if they had 84,184,905 shares issued, right? Where did they do Cosmos? Health reverse split. It was 25-1. So if that is correct, then there would that be about 3 point something million? Is that right? Let me see. They did a direct offering on the 19th. So they'll get 32 million from that. So 2.83 million shares at the new price, though, because that's after the split, right? The reverse split happened on, looks like it was authorized on the 2nd, blah, 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 blah. It was approved. When did it actually split? Let's see if I type it. So the split happened here. So that was on the 16th. So they launched this on the 21st. So this is, they issued out another 3 million shares after the reverse split. Hey, Dave. So I was going to say, when do you think ATER is going to be back over $3? I've been holding for 2 years. Well, if you've been holding for 2 years, that would have put you at, let's see, if this is January, right? So January. So you were holding it back when it was around $14 a share. And then we had the 2 run-ups to 20, right? No. So you held it all the way through when it hit 49 a share. So the stock ran from $14 to $49 a share. That's how long you've been holding that there, Dave? It's a long time. It's longer than I've been holding it. So here's the deal. No, it wasn't on that run. Okay. So you haven't held it for 2 years yet. Because that would have been 2 years. You would have seen the run during, you were on the run from 6 to 18. It actually, I believe, was 320 to 18. Right? It was like it was like $3 and it ran up to 18. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to say, so if you've been holding it, that's the same time frame I've been holding it. So, yeah, that was an actual squeeze because back then there was only 24 million shares and they violated the debt covenant and people jumped on and actually squoze ATER, and they knew eventually they would get those shares from High Trail, but they weren't out yet. And my guess would be there was a bunch of naked shorting that happened during that time frame to get the stock under control until the High Trail shares hit the market. So this stock's been manipulated. It's kind of gross, actually. This has been the most I mainly dealt with large caps and mid caps, and I didn't do much stuff with small caps. This is my first foray into small caps, and I can tell you right now, they do stuff down here on the small caps that you probably wouldn't get away with on a large cap because there's too many eyes. But because they're such small, there might be a couple, 1,000 people watching these tickers on a daily basis, and they're all either hedge funds or retail who ended up like getting caught up in a play. The SEC doesn't seem to care. And what I can tell you is I contacted the SEC myself and presented a bunch of evidence of how highly unusual it would be for a stock that had, at the time, I think like 50 million shares, and yet the stock was trading billions in volume on a small cap that no one's heard of. That's a little bit unusual. So, yeah, the SEC is basically not doing their jobs, and that's been apparent for a long time, but hey. So here you go. This is what I kind of see for right now. We hit this like 60, I think it was 67 was the low here. That's the all-time low now. Obviously, it occurred because of dilution. We were kind of chilling in this range, and this is when they chose to dilute. We had a day that we ran up, and then the next day they announced dilution, and now we're down here because of that. So, 50 cents coming? I mean, it could. I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter. Like, what's 10 cents here or there, because we're already down here in the dirt. And we're down here in the dirt because when they chose to do dilution. That's the honest truth. They chose to do dilution here in like the twos, and now we're sitting down here sub 1 because there's no support for the stock anymore. Like, anyone that's like, was playing it has already left, or they're just sitting here waiting for the bottom. And at this point, there doesn't seem to be any bottom because the macro is not great. Obviously, I showed you guys on the SPY. This is what our future looks like right now. We've been respecting this trend line, and we're just been going down. So, like, there's no reason for ATER to hit 50 cents. That's absurd. It's already ridiculous below $1. Yeah, no, I agree with that. But because of the macro, no one's taking risks, especially on small caps that are cash, strapped, and also, it just, everyone's right now just like, risk, I don't really want to do that. So this is what we did not anticipate was the dilution announcement, because that's where this is right here. So this is kind of what I anticipate seeing. At some point, we're going to find support, and that's when either we get close enough to cash positions of ATER, or if an institution comes in and goes, yeah, I'm willing to roll the dice on this, or if an ETF turns on and goes, we're going to start putting this into our ETF and starting some buys. So at some point, somebody will step in, whether it be ETFs, whether it be another long institution that goes, their numbers aren't as bad, but they're probably going to need to see another earnings. So like the earliest I think this thing could run is probably into like March, April. So if that was to happen, we may see some consolidation in this area, kind of chopping around between, 40 and, let's say 80 cents in this range around here, unless they want. So here's the deal. Armistice has right now, I believe, 8 million shares, which equates to something like 8 or 9% of the float of Ethereum. They don't want to go over 9.99% of the shares outstanding, because then they have some clause in there that is written that they can't own more than that because of hostile takeovers and all that kind of stuff. And also because then you have to report it to the SEC, and the SEC might actually look at what you're doing. So right now, what I anticipate this to happen is they consolidate down here. At some point in March or April, we're going to get some sort of catalyst where Ethereum beats on like an earnings, or, it probably wouldn't happen until later on in the year for earnings beat, where we might actually see like a positive. They're saying third quarter. I don't know. But let's just say they had a like halfway decent, like not just, they showed the bleeding slowing down. If that was to happen, I could see it running up. So if you look here, we've gaps here in the 180s. I could see us running up during that time frame, and then they're able to start unlocking their warrants on April 4th. So right here, can I put in I guess I could put in something here, right? So I could maybe draw like let's see, April 4th, March. So let's just say right here. Oh, I didn't click off there. Right here. So this is where they can unlock their warrants, right? Yeah, we've got warrants at $2, and they paid $190 for them, and also at $320, and they paid $290 for them. So you have to figure right now they own a bunch of shares, and they need to get rid of them before they can unlock the warrants. So could we see a run before them so they can unload them right before, and then, if earnings are great, then push them up into, So if you think about this logically, let's just put down a couple more markers. Let's make it green, because hopefully we'll see green there. Well, let's do it that way. We'll make it thick. All right, so we have that there. And then let's make where their warrants are. So let's say they paid $190 for these things, right? And they also, though, paid $290 for the other set. All right, so these are the two lines, and let's make these different colors. Let's make that one, I don't know, purple. Make this one purple. Okay. Maybe draw it out. Okay. So this is where they can start unlocking them. And these two purple lines are how much they paid for them. So obviously they don't want to, they're fine selling anything above this green or this purple line, right? Because this is what they paid for them. We're way down here, but they own shares. So the question is, I'm thinking about this as logically as I can for you guys. So yeah, I feel you, Dave. So hear me out, right? So Armistice has 8 million shares, right, that they're just sitting on right now. That's their insurance in case ATER was to randomly run, right? So they have these shares to basically hedge. My gut is telling me that Armistice is basically shorting Ethereum, and they bought those warrants as basically an insurance against their short position, right? So they don't have to pay a lot, and it makes them hedge on the safe side. So they make money by pushing this stock down, right? They just keep pushing it down. They offer them, some cash, which Ethereum definitely needs, and in turn, they basically get to hedge their position, safely, because they have access to every share they would need if this stock was to all of a sudden just make another run up to, like, let's just say, remember we ran up right here? This was Armistice. Because we know they sold up here. They unloaded their entire 9.99% position up here. So do I know for a fact they were the ones slapping the ass and pushing up the price? Nope. But at the same time, I also know that they moved really quickly, and they also unloaded their entirety of their shares up here. And then they issued out more warrants. So we're now thinking about this like a hedge fund. So you're sitting here holding up a bunch of shares, right? And you're probably short as well. So what do you do? What happens when you start covering, like, say they can push it down to, like, let's just say 50 cents. If they were able to push it down to 60, 50, who cares how low it goes? For them, it's, probably millions of dollars worth of shorting. They're pushing this down, they push it down. And at that point, when they get to a point where it's like a breaking point for retail or whoever, they basically start covering. So they start, covering their shorts. That means they have to buy those shorts back, right? Because when you short, you sell, a stock with the promise to, buy it back. So when they make the promise to buy it back, they do it right here. This is just my thought. Once again, this is not financial advice, but this is just, I'm trying to think about it as logically as I can. So if I'm a hedge fund that was shorting a stock, I can't get it down much lower than this. At some point, you're going to meet a pocket of support, and then you go, okay, I'm going to start closing. Well, why not take advantage of this, right? You know you're going to close. You know the stock price is going to go up. So you load up on a ton of calls with, let's say $5 calls, right? So maybe they stack a bunch of $5, a bunch of $3, a bunch of $2 calls, right? And they are the ones pushing this price up because they're the ones covering. So they're buying. It's pushing the price up, As the price starts getting up, they've already paid for these shares, right? They need to get it above 190 because that's what they paid for those shares. So once they get up to this purple line, right, this is where it's really fun for them, because now they basically start unloading in this range here, right? But they are also able to start exercising their warrants and getting warrants back. So basically they were doing an exchange of selling their shares for profit and getting warrants in place. And, could this be they start pushing it up here, maybe into the 4s and 5s, and then at that point, this purple line is where they're profitable on the 290/320 warrants, right? So they paid 290 for the 320 warrants. So once they get it above this line, they're profitable. So if they can get it up to $4 or $5 a share, maybe close this gap, then at that point, that would be probably where I would start shorting again and then push it back down. I think that's what they're doing. This is just obviously my own, guessing, but I look back to what they did here, right? So they basically killed us after that squeeze, right? So they kept just piling on shorts. The volume died off. We had this entire bleeding process all the way down. We had a little, is this rally? And then just get killed right here at earnings. We actually beat on earnings, but it still didn't matter. And then we chopped around, and then all of a sudden that DD I wrote came out, and randomly it just ran. Did they use my DD as an excuse and be like, oh, look, retail's pumping the stock, and they pushed it all the way up to where they were going to make a huge amount of profit and sold? And since then, they've just been looks like they shorted. And then Ethereum offered dilution way down here, and that's where we are now. So, and you think it's safe to say ATER will at least hit $4 again at some point. That's my hope. I mean, it really depends on this, because here's the issue. Ethereum is low on cash, right? So they need cash at some point. They still have $11 million they can raise on. They would have to issue out, obviously, in some sort of either ROD or ATM, but they have the ability to raise another $11 million if they want to on the current pipe that they're on, which is, if you go here, we pull up Ethereum, they still have down here, if you look at what's called your shelf, on this current shelf, they only have 11.5 million out of the 75 that they were able to raise. So they're able to still raise a little bit more, right? We already have 80, and then once warrants are exercised, we'll be around 100 million shares. Yeah. My hope is that they're smart enough not to do the offering when it's in the dirt, because if they do that, then obviously it's going to take forever for us to get out of that, because it's just, if they did an offering down here, we're going to be stuck for a long time. And that's, I think, what the short's goal is I think the short's goal is to basically make us dilute while we're down here. They already made us dilute here, and then they did it down here. So, it's infuriating, because I think they're the ones pushing the price down when Ethereum needs to, So Ethereum has two options. They can either go back to the lender that they actually charge interest, or they can basically dilute one more time and hopefully raise enough cash to get through all this nightmare. So if they dilute, then yeah, it's going to take longer. The goal for them, the shorts, is to get it to zero. The goal for the company basically at this point is to survive. They have to make it through essentially they have to make it through this gauntlet of the macro being bad. But the one nice thing is the shipping rates have come down, which helps their margins, which actually makes them slightly more profitable than back when all this was going on, right? Because when they were doing all this stuff, chopping around, the shipping rates were at all-time highs. We're still feeling the effects, and you have to remember, all those shipping things always are months out. So if shipping improves, let's say we're hitting all-time lows on shipping recently, or like back to like 2019 shipping rates, you would see, for example, that probably further down the line. So you might actually start seeing the improvements in these quarters right here. So this was all caused by the shipping crisis and them basically gouging APRN and other like Amazons and other people. And on one last question, you don't see APRN going bankrupt in the next 2 years. They still have 11 million cash, which seems like a lot, and the margins you just mentioned. So let me just go over the balance sheet with you, because this is how you kind of look at it. Sorry, it's this one. So right now we think they have somewhere in the neighborhood of, like, what did they say? Let me see if I can go back. They think that they have roughly around $20 million in cash right now. This is estimated after the cash burn and also the acquisition. So that's just a rough estimate, is that we have about a year's left, roughly between 9 and 12 months of cash left, depending on how much the cash burn is. So that's right now where we're at. Do they need cash? Yes. They need to slow their cash burn, which they say that they're doing because they're not paying out as many lenders. They basically had a bunch of debt that they had to pay off, and they did pay off a good chunk of it with the dilution. So they should have lowered at least their cash burn somewhat. And they should be able to, hopefully, because they had a better Black Friday, actually have that, go through and help them. So they still have cash coming in from, inventory getting converted over to accounts receivable, or actually getting payments in cash. So you have money coming in still, because we do have revenue. It's not all expenses and they're sitting stagnant. So it's constantly this balance of like how much money is going in, how much money is going out, and cash right now is king because, interest rates are climbing. So if they can do it, we may see another round of dilution at some point, but my hope is that they'll run it before then, because I think at this point right now, what ideally, if I was Armistice, I would want to basically, knowing that there's going to be, this is when they can unlock their stuff, I would try to get this stuff out in this time frame between 23 and 24, and then reassess if I want to reshort them. That's what I would do if I was like, Armistice, because they already have the shares right now. They have the shares to go. If they wanted to go long on Ethereum, they can. And they have enough to probably cover their entire, short position, because that would be the smart thing, because you got it for dirt cheap, right? You got these shares for $20 million. They gave you basically a way of pumping, because look at this. When they did this, they made millions of dollars on this pump, and they sold at the top. So they were sitting there with these shares sitting there at 290, and then they pushed it all the way to 7, right? So that's kind of what I'm seeing, is I think this is where we're going to go with it. I think this is how much they paid for these like 7 million warrants. 10 million warrants are down here at 190. So, and this is when they can execute them. So I do think we'll see some movement when we get closer to here. We also have this earnings, which could possibly be a catalyst. So if they did better, it could recover a little bit, and then that's where they would want to push this up. That's my thought. And obviously, my thoughts don't really matter, but, this is just as much logic as I can use at this point right now. So I do think at some point, ideally, they would love to get it up to like 4 or 5, make all that money, and then reshort it back down. So there you go. Yeah, but it is a frustrating play. Trust me, I'm with you on that. it's sad how we can't rely on the SEC to just have, yeah, they literally do. Look at Armistice Holdings and start looking at some of those tickers. Literally, it's like this. Just into the dirt, huge spike, into the dirt, huge spike. This is what they do. Like, apparently this is just their business model, is to basically short things into the ground. If they can get it to zero, great. But if not, cover, reshort it, and they just do this over and over again. Yeah, I mean, I've learned a ton about. I mean, here's the honest truth: the SEC is not doing anything with these small caps, especially these. Look at this. Look at HKD. I just want you guys to think about this. It is not normal for tickers to go up 12,000% in days. Like, this is not normal. It doesn't go from $10 a share to a high of $2,500 a share, right? It doesn't make sense. This was basically Chinese billionaires trying to get their money into the U.S. stock market, and they're doing it through these IPOs, these Chinese IPOs. And the SEC's not done a thing. Like, I want to curse, I'm not going to. But, like, the SEC has not done a thing on stuff like this. They're like, oh, we should look into that. This isn't the only one. There was like 10 of these things that they pumped like 12,000%, and then, yeah, like, what does it go? $10 to $2,400 a share. I mean, it's just, and there's people who made probably millions, if not billions, of dollars off that trade. Like, and they're not being investigated. Like, it just, this stuff happens all the time. And yet, you know, I actually had an SEC person call me back, and sent them all the stuff I had. Said it's not normal for a stock in this time frame from February, which is right here, from February until basically right here. Ethereum traded over 1.5 billion shares in volume on a stock that no one's ever heard of. Are you kidding me? And 60 million shares outstanding. 1.5 billion in volume. That's not normal. Like, the SEC did nothing. And they're not going to do anything, because I think they're basically either so understaffed that they can't keep up. And think about this. There's thousands and thousands of tickers on the exchanges, OTCs, and people are nefariously doing bad things all the time. And so the honest truth is, they don't have time to go through every single one of these. And I finally got someone to call me back about this, and honestly, they didn't do anything. Like, I showed them. I'm like, it's not normal for a stock to be on Reg Show multiple times within a year. I mean, it's not. You know, you look back in ticker history, and if we go to Ethereum and we pull up, you know, where is it? You know, it was on Reg Show twice in a year. And here's the thing. They're doing it with, like, for example, Beyond, right? Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat's been on here 4 times in the last, like, year and a half, 2 years, something like that. Look at this. What's the SEC doing? Like, this is not normal for stocks to be on Reg Show for these longs. That means naked shorting is occurring. That's what Reg Show is. There's nothing. It's disgusting. So yeah, why would Ethereum ever work with them? Honestly, because they're probably one of the few people willing to give them cash right now. Like, most people are either going to charge them a ton of interest, right? So if you think about it this way, Ethereum would be taking on a massive amount of debt. So say they wanted to take out like a $40 million loan or a $20 million loan, right? So they're going to give it to you at these higher interest rates. And at this point, they also are going to have a bunch of, like, you know, if you go below a certain amount of cash, then we're going to go ahead and you have to owe us even more shares. So why not just dilute in the first place? That's kind of honestly what I think they said was, well, this, if we violate a debt covenant again, if like shipping rates go back up and we get screwed, then why not at least just, sell the shares right now to this hedge fund? At least they'll get the cash to us and there's no strings attached except for the fact that they're shorting them to death. But like they can't prove that because you don't have to report short positions. So like you can have, huge amounts shorted and you don't have to report it to the SEC. Like you don't list it publicly. And they say it's because, someone could squeeze us out of our position. Well, honestly, if you have a position that size, you probably should, if you're making money shorting it down, that's fine. But like you should have to report that. Like people have to report longs. You should have to report shorts too. There's a lot wrong with the market, and I'm going to start getting more into. I think I'm going to start making more videos. Like I don't know if you guys saw this, but I posted a video today. I think I'm going to restart and just kind of. I'm going to start trying to put out videos that matter, which are information that retail should know. And let me just put this in here. If you get a chance, watch that video. I just uploaded it today. But essentially what it is that is the CEO of Overstock, Patrick Byrne, and he was explaining basically what they found when they sued Goldman and a bunch of other people, which is all these prime brokerages were making tons and tons of money. Like, in fact, 75% of their revenue from their prime brokers were through these security lending desks, where they basically would just go, yeah, you're supposed to locate shares before you short them, but they don't really do that. They just short them. And, yeah, of course. I was gonna say, I'm in with you guys. Like, I also have a position, and that dilution killed my position too, because I had a decent average prior. But when you have a lot of shares, it does tend to take a while to average down. It's not like when I have, if for example, if I have 1,000 shares and the stock gets cut in half, at like sub $1, you could easily get your average down pretty decently. But if you have a lot of shares, like, tens of thousands of shares, 100,000 shares, if you have a lot of shares, it takes a lot more to average that down. And so, like, especially when you're like, I'm going to be honest, I don't have much cash anymore. Like, I sold my house and a lot of it went towards buying Ethereum to get my average down. And that was back in the 3s. So like, I use some ammo there, and now I've just trying to just save as much as I can so I can get my average down as close as I can to these warrants. But I'm not going anywhere. Like I bought this, I bought the stock like you guys did. I've been sitting here watching it. I'm a little more patient, I think, than a lot of people as far as like, I understand that Ethereum at this point is going through, like, obviously, a rough time. They got shorted to death. Like, they got basically kicked when they were down. Somebody was holding them down when they were trying to raise money, which means that they're going to, have to dilute more, which is going to push their share price down more. Like, I've seen it all now with these guys. So, I've also seen what these hedge funds do, which is, for example, like push that stock all the way up, and then, a bunch of bots came out and told everyone to sell. And then, this has been a ridiculous ride on this stock, and it's been emotional. So I respect you for being as deep. Yeah. Honestly, I wish this thing would have just run and then everyone would make money. That's what I'm hoping for. But at this point right now, I think it's more realistic to think that this right now, because of the dilution, this is more the range we're going to see. I'd love it to hit 20, but at this point right now, I think we need to see probably 4 to 5 would be the high point if they were able to even get it that high. There's a whole bunch of gaps, though, I showed you guys here in this range, and I think that's more realistic to think that we're going to get into this range. So if you're able to average down and get your stock, averages down to, sub where the warrants are, you're a lot safer than if you left it at 7 and then you might be holding the stock for years. So it just depends on how, your time frame. What do you need the money now? Do you want to be in long term? We have somebody in our group that's held the stock since the Mohawk days. So they got to see this run from basically, I think it was like 142, Tarifa's favorite number, all the way up to $49 a share. So the stock ran from 142 up to $49 a share. Of course, that was back when, there was a good deal of retail interest at the time, and there was also actually very low volume on it, which is one thing I thought was interesting. So somebody was slapping the ass on that thing, moving this thing up, and then someone actually squeezed it here. The one that ran up to 18. We left these gaps up there, so I'm just hoping these guys get their act together and they're able to see at least some recovery and they're able to raise some money back when the stock's at a more decent price. But I'm not going anywhere. I'll keep talking about Ethereum and other stocks, and I'm going to keep trying to research and find out, what I can about, the people that are shorting us and, how this all works. Because, like I said, I was more used to large caps and medium caps. When I started diving into this, I was going, oh, well, then SEC should be enforcing these rules any day now. And they never did. They just straight up never did. It's probably because there's a lot less money on the table in comparison to these large caps where somebody might go, no, but at the same time, this institution who has, $120 million invested in this is getting screwed as well. There's going to be more pressure to actually look into it. Whereas if, a small cap like Ethereum, there's a lot less money being, look at the difference. I'll show you right here. Our market cap now is 58 million, and look at the short positions. So if we go here to shorts, and if you look, there's only $5 million shorted right now. There is our estimate. Because nobody's buying or trading the stock, so it doesn't take much. So for them, this is play money to them. To these shorts, we're not costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. And if we are, it's honestly worth it because they've been able to basically just completely manipulate the price of the stock on essentially almost nothing to them. They just lent Ethereum, $20 million. What's $5 million short against them, So, yeah, I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to keep working on it, and we're going to find different plays, and we'll, eventually try to get everyone out of the hole on all these different, tickers that we've been kind of talking about. And, I'm going to be trying to share as much as I can on smarter, more fundamental plays. I shared MTB when it was 37 a share. MTB now I think is in the 140s. Yeah, I think it was that's after market. Where is it now? Yeah, it's 144 right now. So I basically called it out down here when it touched 132nd or 137 for a second. And since then, because there's a huge gap they need to fill and they've got earnings coming up. So I was telling people about this one. And not only that, but they're actually a profitable and decent company. They've got, tons of buy signals on them. And if you get stuck with them, it's not a horrible thing. They're still profitable. They're still a good business. So, I don't think they have a ton of short interest either. But yeah, 2% short interest like that. But look how much difference is, and look at the market cap difference. So I just showed you Ethereum, which was 5 million. They have a tiny, tiny bit of short interest against them, and it's worth basically $500,000. That's crazy. When you start looking at things like Tesla, if we go to like shorts, there's, what is it, $8 billion shorted against Tesla right now. So like that's the reason why it's a little bit different, right? Because when you're sitting here looking at, like, they're paying attention more to this stuff than they are to Ethereum with $5 million shorted against us. And like what's sad is like there's a bunch of people that are deep in this, and this is a huge life-changing amount of money for a lot of us, and at the same time they're not paying attention to it at all. And even though like they've been contacted about the stock multiple times, I can't be the only person that's ever reported this small cap to the SEC when it's ran from 2 to 49, then from 3 to 18, back to 9 to 17, then from 210 to 727. Like, I've been on the stock so long that I know all their jumps, and like it's disgusting how much this thing's been like manipulated. But it is what it is. I can't do anything right now, but I can at least answer questions if I can, and then we'll keep working on like trying to get better about stuff. Oh, Dave asks, let's see, what's your average? I am still above the warrants at 320. So I think right now at like 340 something. I got it down. I think I might have gotten it into the 330s. I have to double check. I didn't look, but that's roughly where I'm at. So I'm getting close to at least the 320 like line, but I need to get it lower. Can major shorting be even possible if it doesn't seem like they're actually profitable by third quarter? I mean, their goal was to basically put the stock to zero, because then they get to, if they had any naked share, like shorting on the stock, it all gets buried if they can get it to be delisted. Like, that's their goal. That's what they want to do. They want Ethereum to go tank down. But remember, it takes months and months and months for it to basically come out of, or go into out of compliance, and then they can file appeals and extensions. So it's a very long process to force them to basically come within compliance again. Like, it can take literally like 9 months to like do it after you extend a bunch of different times. So as long as you have a plan on how you're going to do it, whether it's a reverse split, as you saw with Cosm, it can cause good things sometimes, bad things sometimes. It all depends. But yeah, I'm getting frustrated with the market just because I'm sitting there watching rules getting broken daily, and I'm just going, at what point will people care? And I think one of the major things I've learned is not everyone knows this stuff. And not everyone kind of can wrap their head around it, because there's plenty of people, even in our Discord, that have heard it a million times and then ask the same questions. And they're going, well, how is this possible? And it's like, it shouldn't be, but nobody's enforcing any rules. Like, it's the wild, wild west. Like, and that's the truth of it. And it's sad, and I don't like it, but like, nobody seems to be enforcing any rules anytime. Trying to fix my desk. I just fell apart. They can't keep them shorting till 2024. I mean, they can short as long as Ethereum's in business if they want to, but the question is, does Ethereum at some point turn around? And that's kind of the interesting thing, is because they've made a lot of money shorting it. Now they can make some money on the upside, and if they want to, they can reshort it. So the question is, at some point, are they going to just reverse like they did back in April of this year, or this last year, I should say, because Happy New Year, right? Because if Ethereum does go profitable, then all of a sudden their thesis changes. But until then, you kind of have to just deal with them, just hammering on the stock, because they know that they need cash. Ethereum does need cash. That's the honest truth. Ethereum's not profitable, which means they're not cash flow positive. So they're not just going to be building up cash and sitting on it. At this point right now, they're still burning more cash than they're bringing in. So therefore, until they can buy enough companies or acquire and through mergers, whoever, whatever. They need to basically find some business that's cash flow positive, purchase it, help their books, and then they keep, going like that, building on it. And it may take a while. It just depends. Like, I'm hoping the warrant run happens because Armistice gets impatient and just goes, we need to make some money. Let's just pump this thing and get it over with. And that's what I was talking about with these lines. These purple lines are over those lines. That's where they're profitable. And this is where they can start exercising the warrants. So, I would think in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see something happen with this stock. Don't know what it is, but at this point, this is where I think it starts getting back into this. This was the point where they pushed it down, pushed it down, and then they reversed and went up, sold all their shares. That's what Armistice did last time. Same sort of thing. It took months, though. Remember, it took from basically September all the way to April of last year. Of last year. So that was a good amount of months that we had to wait. And so since that run, if you kind of look at this right here, where that little spike happened, that's August. And now we're sitting here, and it probably wouldn't move until, roughly March, where this earnings is, into maybe April. So we'll see. It's 11. I think I'm going to jump off. I've got a bunch of things I need to kind of get done, but if you guys have any other ones you want to look at, you can always DM me, and then we'll take a look at them. Hopefully tomorrow won't be as busy at work. I got in the office yesterday, or today, and it was literally just like heads running around like chickens with their heads cut off because the New Year's we were out, and so all right. Well, you guys have a great evening, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. If you have any tickers you want to look at, just DM me or throw it in the main chat, and we can kind of go from there. All right, have a great night, guys.